We live in an age that treats romance as proof of success. A woman is quietly measured not by her character, her discipline, or her depth, but by whether someone has chosen her. If she walks alone, the world assumes something must be missing. Yet this assumption reveals more about the world's confusion than about the woman herself. A woman without a boyfriend is not unfinished. She is not a draft waiting for approval. She is already a complete sentence. We must first understand a simple truth. Love does not create worth, it recognizes it. If worth depended on being chosen by another human being, then it would be fragile indeed, subject to moods, circumstances, and the limitations of imperfect people. A woman's value cannot rest on something so unstable. It must rest on what does not change her moral strength, her intellect, her conscience, and her capacity to grow. There is a strange fear of solitude in modern life. Silence feels threatening. Being alone feels like failure. But solitude, when rightly used, is not emptiness. It is education. It teaches a woman who she is when no one is applauding, correcting, or distracting her. It reveals whether her thoughts are her own or merely echoes of others' expectations. A woman without a boyfriend often learns how to stand without leaning. She learns how to make decisions not to impress, but to improve. She learns the difference between loneliness and peace, a lesson many never learn, even inside relationships. We should be honest enough to admit that not every relationship is a gift. Some are burdens disguised as blessings. To be with the wrong person does not cure loneliness. It multiplies it. There are few things more exhausting than pretending to be fulfilled while slowly losing yourself. That is why patience in love is not weakness. It is wisdom. A woman who waits is not wasting time. She is refusing to exchange her future for momentary comfort. She understands, perhaps instinctively, that love should expand her life, not shrink it, that it should sharpen her character, not dull it, that it should bring clarity, not confusion. There is also a moral courage in being alone. It requires resisting social pressure, unanswered questions, and sometimes unfair judgments. It requires trusting that a meaningful life is built, not stumbled upon through desperation. And here is the great paradox: the woman who does not need a boyfriend to feel whole is the woman most capable of healthy love, because she will not beg for attention, tolerate disrespect, or confuse attachment with affection. She will choose freely, not out of fear, but out of conviction. So let us correct the false narrative. A woman without a boyfriend is not behind in life. She is not incomplete. She is not failing. She may be preparing. She may be growing. She may be becoming the kind of person who can love deeply without losing herself. And that is not a delay. That is progress. In the end, the question is not, why is she alone? The wiser question is, what kind of life is she building? Because a strong foundation matters far more than a rushed arrival. And when love comes, if it comes, it should meet a woman who knows who she is, what she believes, and what she will never compromise. That kind of woman does not wait for love to give her meaning. She lives meaningfully and allows love to join her life, not define it. A woman's worth does not arrive with a boyfriend, nor does it disappear in his absence. Worth is not alone taken from another human being. It is an ownership already held. Yet society subtly teaches women to doubt this truth. From a young age, value is often presented as something to be confirmed externally, by attention, admiration, or romantic interest. Over time, this idea becomes so normal that many begin to believe that being chosen is the same as being valuable. But this belief collapses under even light examination. If worth truly depended on romance, then it would rise and fall with breakups, arguments, distance, and rejection. Something so unstable cannot be the foundation of a human life. To borrow worth from romance is to place one's identity in unsafe hands. Another person, no matter how kind, is limited, inconsistent, and imperfect. When a woman measures herself through someone else's desire, she silently agrees to let her confidence fluctuate with their behavior. On good days she feels important, on bad days she feels invisible. This is not love. It is emotional dependence disguised as connection. True self-respect begins when a woman understands that her value is not something to be proved to anyone, but something to be protected within herself. A woman who believes her worth depends on having a boyfriend may unknowingly tolerate less than she deserves. She may excuse disrespect, silence her boundaries, or remain in unhealthy situations simply to avoid being alone. This is one of the quiet dangers of borrowed worth. It makes endurance look like loyalty and fear look like commitment. When worth is internal, choices are guided by principle. When worth is external, choices are guided by desperation. The difference between the two determines whether a woman lives deliberately or merely reacts to circumstances. There is also a moral dimension to this truth. If a woman's value comes from being desired, then people become tools rather than individuals. Relationships turn into transactions. Affection is traded for validation, attention for reassurance. But when worth is inherent, love becomes a gift freely given, not a necessity clung to. A woman who knows her value does not enter relationships to be completed. She enters them to share completeness. This changes the entire nature of love, from survival to partnership. It is important to recognize that independence of worth does not mean rejection of love. It simply means refusing to worship it. Love is meaningful precisely because it is chosen, not because it is required for self-approval. A woman can desire companionship without needing it to confirm her existence. She can appreciate affection without being defined by it. This balance is rare, yet it is the mark of emotional maturity. When a woman stops borrowing worth from romance, she begins to invest in things that last longer than attraction. She invests in discipline, character, faith, skills, and purpose. These are not diminished by time or rejection. They grow stronger through effort and reflection. Such investments produce a quiet confidence, one that does not announce itself loudly, but stands firm even when unnoticed. This kind of confidence cannot be taken away by another person's choices. There is also freedom in this understanding. A woman no longer rushes into relationships to meet deadlines imposed by society. She no longer compares her timeline with others. She is not embarrassed by singleness, nor does she treat it as a flaw to be fixed. Instead, she views it as a condition, sometimes chosen, sometimes temporary, but never shameful. This freedom allows her to wait without anxiety and choose without fear. Perhaps the most overlooked truth is this: a woman who does not borrow worth from romance becomes a better partner when love eventually arrives. She does not expect another person to heal her insecurities or carry her identity. She comes with stability, not neediness, with clarity, not confusion. Her presence adds peace rather than pressure. Such a woman does not ask love to save her. She asks it to walk with her. In a world that constantly measures women by who stands beside them, reclaiming inherent worth is a quiet rebellion. It is choosing truth over applause, substance over appearance. It is the decision to stand whole, whether loved romantically or not. And that decision changes not only how a woman is treated, but how she lives. Solitude is often misunderstood as a sign of lack, as though being alone automatically means being abandoned, unwanted, or incomplete. Yet solitude, when approached with honesty, functions less like a punishment and more like a classroom. It is a space where distractions are reduced and truths become louder. Many fear this space because it removes the noise that keeps deeper questions at bay. But it is precisely in this quiet that growth begins. A woman without a boyfriend is not necessarily deprived of companionship. She may simply be placed in a season where learning takes precedence over attachment. In solitude, a woman encounters herself without interruption. There is no one to impress, no one to adjust her opinions for, no one whose approval must be earned. This confrontation can be uncomfortable, but it is essential. Without it, identity remains vague and borrowed. Solitude asks difficult questions. What do I actually believe? What do I value when no one is watching? What patterns do I repeat, and why? These questions are rarely answered in the presence of constant emotional involvement. They require distance, reflection, and time. A woman who has not learned in solitude often enters relationships carrying unexamined habits and unresolved wounds. She may mistake intensity for intimacy or attention for love. Solitude exposes these confusions before they cause harm. It provides room to recognize emotional dependencies, unhealthy expectations, and fears that have been quietly shaping decisions. This awareness is not meant to condemn, but to correct. Growth that occurs here is internal, unseen, yet foundational. There is also discipline learned in solitude. Without external motivation, a woman must learn to direct herself. She learns how to manage her time, her emotions, and her energy without leaning on someone else for structure or reassurance. This self-governance builds resilience. Life inevitably brings seasons of loss, distance, and change. A woman trained by solitude does not collapse when support is temporarily absent. She has already learned how to stand alone without becoming bitter or detached. Solitude teaches the difference between loneliness and emptiness. Loneliness is the natural desire for connection. Emptiness is the absence of meaning. Many attempt to cure emptiness with relationships, only to discover that companionship cannot replace purpose. In solitude, a woman is forced to confront this truth. She learns that meaning must be cultivated internally through purpose, values, and direction. When this foundation is laid, relationships enhance life rather than distract from it. There is clarity that emerges only in quiet seasons. Without romantic involvement clouding judgment, a woman can observe patterns in herself and in others. She notices what she tolerates, what she avoids, and what she truly needs. This clarity sharpens discernment. When solitude is treated as a school, it educates taste in relationships. A woman no longer chooses based on fear of being alone, but on alignment of character and vision. Solitude also strengthens emotional honesty. There is no one else to blame for dissatisfaction, no one else to fill the silence. A woman must face her own restlessness and learn to address it constructively. She may discover creativity, spirituality, or intellectual curiosity that was previously suppressed by constant emotional engagement. These discoveries are not accidental. They are the results of attention redirected inward. Importantly, solitude does not erase the desire for love, it refines it. Instead of longing for any connection, a woman begins to desire meaningful connection. She understands that not all companionship is beneficial, and that peace is preferable to constant emotional turbulence. This understanding protects her from rushing into relationships that demand too much and give too little. When solitude is accepted as a season of learning rather than a sentence to escape, it transforms perception. What once felt like delay becomes preparation. What once felt like absence becomes space. The woman who allows solitude to teach her emerges with greater self-knowledge, emotional balance, and patience. These qualities are not loud, but they are rare. In this way, solitude quietly equips a woman for life itself, whether she later enters a relationship or continues independently. She carries with her the lessons learned in silence. She is no longer afraid of being alone because she has learned how to be present with herself. And that lesson, once learned, becomes a lifelong strength rather than a temporary phase. Love is often imagined as a saving force, something that arrives to fix what is broken, fill what is empty, and give direction to what feels lost. This expectation, though common, places an impossible burden on relationships. When love is asked to rescue a life rather than enrich it, it becomes strained under the weight of unrealistic demands. A woman who looks to love as a lifeline may confuse emotional relief with genuine connection, mistaking intensity for depth and dependency for devotion. A relationship built on rescue begins with imbalance. One person arrives needing to be saved, while the other is unconsciously cast in the role of healer, protector, or source of identity. This dynamic rarely produces lasting health. Over time, the one who is expected to rescue becomes exhausted, while the one seeking rescue becomes increasingly fearful of abandonment. Love, in such conditions, stops being mutual and starts becoming a negotiation for emotional survival. When a woman enters a relationship to escape loneliness, boredom, or insecurity, she brings unresolved needs into the connection. These needs do not disappear simply because someone is present. They demand attention, reassurance, and constant affirmation. The partner becomes responsible not only for companionship, but for emotional stability. This is not love adding to life. It is love being used to compensate for what was never addressed internally. A healthy relationship begins when two individuals meet as whole persons, not as solutions to each other's problems. Wholeness does not imply perfection, but it does imply responsibility. Each person takes ownership of their emotional health, purpose, and values. In such a union, love becomes a shared experience rather than a desperate requirement. It enhances joy instead of being the sole source of it. There is a subtle difference between wanting love and needing it to function. Wanting love allows choice, needing it creates fear. Fear pressures people to settle, to ignore warning signs, and to stay silent when boundaries are crossed. A woman who believes love must rescue her may tolerate neglect or disrespect simply to avoid facing life alone. In doing so, she trades long-term peace for short-term comfort. When love adds to life, it brings clarity rather than confusion. It encourages growth rather than dependency. It supports individuality instead of erasing it. A woman in such a relationship does not feel smaller to keep someone close. She feels supported in becoming more herself. Her goals, friendships, and inner life are not threatened by love, but strengthened by it. It is also important to recognize that love cannot heal wounds it did not create. Emotional injuries from the past require personal reflection, accountability, and time. Expecting a partner to repair these wounds often leads to disappointment. Love can support healing, but it cannot replace the work that must be done within. When a woman understands this, she approaches relationships with honesty rather than hidden expectations. A relationship that adds to life feels stable, not dramatic. It does not rely on constant reassurance to survive. Instead, it is marked by mutual respect, shared values, and emotional consistency. Such love may appear less exciting to those accustomed to chaos, but it proves more enduring. Stability, often mistaken for dullness, is actually the environment in which trust and depth grow. When a woman no longer seeks rescue through love, she becomes more discerning. She asks not whether someone wants her, but whether their presence improves her life. She evaluates how she feels in the relationship, more peaceful or more anxious, more confident or more doubtful. This discernment protects her from relationships that drain rather than enrich. Love that adds to life does not demand that a woman abandon herself. It does not require her to silence her voice, lower her standards, or accept uncertainty as normal. Instead, it complements what already exists. It joins a life that is already moving forward and contributes to its direction. In understanding that love is meant to add rather than rescue, a woman frees herself from unrealistic expectations. She no longer waits for someone to give her purpose or stability. She builds these things herself and allows love, when it comes, to walk alongside her rather than carry her. This understanding transforms love from a necessity into a meaningful choice. Patience is often mistaken for passivity, as though waiting means doing nothing or falling behind. In reality, patience is an active discipline of restraint guided by understanding. A woman who practices patience in matters of love is not avoiding life. She is engaging with it thoughtfully. She recognizes that not every opportunity deserves a response, and not every possibility is meant to be pursued. Waiting, in this sense, is not the absence of movement, but the refusal to move without direction. The pressure to hurry is powerful. Society presents timelines as though they are universal laws. By a certain age, one should be chosen, settled, and secured. When a woman does not meet these expectations, her patience is misinterpreted as delay or failure. Yet these timelines are constructed, not natural. Growth does not occur on schedules dictated by comparison. Wisdom understands that readiness cannot be rushed without consequence. Patience allows a woman to observe rather than react. Instead of entering relationships to meet expectations or escape discomfort, she pauses to evaluate character, consistency, and intention. This pause is not fear, it is discernment. Many mistakes in love are not caused by bad intentions but by haste. Patience slows the process just enough for truth to reveal itself. There is also courage required in patience. To wait is to resist the immediate relief of attention and affirmation. It means choosing long-term well-being over short-term reassurance. A woman who is patient accepts temporary uncertainty in exchange for lasting peace. This choice is rarely celebrated, but it quietly protects her future. Patience teaches emotional regulation. Instead of seeking constant stimulation or validation, a woman learns how to sit with desire without being controlled by it. She understands that wanting something does not obligate her to pursue it immediately. This self-control strengthens her ability to make decisions based on values rather than impulses. Waiting also creates space for preparation. During this time, a woman develops clarity about what she will and will not accept. She reflects on past patterns, learns from disappointment, and strengthens boundaries. This preparation ensures that when love does arrive, she meets it with maturity rather than confusion. What appears to be delay from the outside is often alignment happening internally. Patience protects against settling. Many relationships exist not because they are healthy, but because one or both individuals feared waiting any longer. This fear-driven choice often leads to compromise of standards and prolonged dissatisfaction. A patient woman understands that loneliness is temporary, but the consequences of a poor decision can be lasting. There is also a deeper trust embedded in patience. It is the belief that life unfolds with meaning, even when progress is not immediately visible. This trust does not rely on optimism alone. It is reinforced by the understanding that rushed choices often create problems that patience would have prevented. Waiting becomes a form of faith in wisdom rather than chance. Patience reframes success. Instead of measuring life by milestones reached, a woman measures it by integrity maintained. She values the quality of her choices more than the speed at which they are made. This perspective shifts focus from external approval to internal alignment. When patience is practiced, love becomes intentional rather than accidental. A woman is no longer swept into relationships by timing or pressure. She chooses with clarity, having observed patterns and tested consistency. This intentionality increases the likelihood of mutual respect and shared direction. Understanding patience as wisdom changes the emotional experience of waiting. What once felt like stagnation becomes purposeful stillness. A woman no longer anxiously counts time but uses it. She grows, learns, and strengthens herself without resentment. Waiting, then, is not a gap in life but a meaningful part of it. In this way, patience ceases to be an obstacle and becomes a guide. It leads a woman away from hurried decisions and toward thoughtful ones. Far from delaying life, patience ensures that when progress comes, it is sustainable, dignified, and true.